The films being compared in this video are Gojira, the 1954 film directed by Ishiro Honda, and Godzilla, the 2014 reimagining directed by Gareth Edwards. In Gojira, there is a central theme linking to the effect of nuclear warfare, and on a more general perspective, the use of superweapons. In Japan, most activist messages were in response to the United States' uses of atomic power. Honda made the film to give Japanese moviegoers a sense of catharsis and understanding, using the titular giant monster as a metaphor for the terror the populace faced. In Godzilla, the evident allegory here is the effects and aftermath of climate change. As natural disasters have become a growing concern over the last 20 years, the film is inspired by a wide range of natural disasters to address the changing state of the world, as well as how humanity's arrogance can be a catalyst for such issues. Both monster movies have strong environmentalist messages that address current world issues. However, where Gojira is shown to be a force of destruction, Godzilla heroified the monster. Despite that difference, the similarities can be seen in several points in cinematography and adherence to the genre conventions, but maintaining Godzilla's role as a cathartic character, even if it's through different means. There's a theory in narrative storytelling called the Barthes codes, created by Roland Barthes, who is known for his examinations into narrative structures and the meanings behind them. He composed a 5-portion structure for identifying elements in films that the audience would resonate with, and 2 of these portions are relevant to this comparison. The symbolic code, something that the audience associates with a more abstract concept, and the cultural code, something that is immediately understood through cultural context. For Gojira, Honda made sure to adopt a greater contextual message to generate a sympathetic response from the audience. He made use of the symbolic code through the fallout of Godzilla's first attack. It emphasizes the horrors of Godzilla's power and the shocking effects that it has on the citizens of Tokyo. It intersects with this cultural code by reminding the audience of the damage and pain caused by the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings, as well as the Daigo Fukuryumaru fishing boat incident caused by the US's nuclear tests in the Pacific, directly inspiring the opening of the film. It further emphasizes the movie's fear of atomic power by showing such a demonstration. This effect is used similarly with Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. Much like Honda's film, it calls to several real-life natural disasters with immense fallout visually, emphasizing the level of destruction caused by the 2 kaiju. The aftermath of the final Godzilla and Muto battle sees firefighters as first responders and football stadiums being used as relief centers, much like the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina. More of such imagery is seen earlier in the film, such as with the first incident of a nuclear power plant being destroyed, referencing the Fukushima nuclear disaster of 2011. And there's more to it than just the genre. Gojira is revolutionary for how it used minimal effects and its cinematography to create a sense of scale, using rubber suits and perspective tricks that surpassed the traditional stop-motion techniques used for other contemporary monster movies. Honda crafted this illusion through the selective application of close-ups and low-angle shots, and this effect is aided by the compositing, the low-key lighting, and the presentation of the monster as menacing and unstoppable. The near silhouette of its horrifying face as it opens its serrated jaw is meant to be terrifying, and sells that with its monstrous roar as it towers over shattering buildings in the corner of the frame, desensitizing the audience while still emphasizing the terror and devastation. Similarly, Gareth Edwards uses a wide range of low-angle shots to emphasize the size and power of the kaiju.
In terms of doing Godzilla, it was just like, let's hark back to that style of filmmaking that I grew up with and a lot of the people we worked with grew up with, like those early Spielberg movies, where they really milk and get the balance right with suspense.
The compositing is desaturated to reflect a more grim atmosphere. The use of light serves to awe the audience and emphasize the scale and power of Godzilla. And he further emphasizes this, and adds to it, by using point-of-view shots, with the perspective of children on the school bus, first through seeing the military operation, and then the battle between Godzilla and the Muto. Not only does this over-the-shoulder perspective multiply the scale of Godzilla, but it makes use of conventions to sell the terror of the scene. The children are audibly screaming in terror as they drive through the chaos, reframing the action to horror, but also reflecting the tension and destruction at play. This ultimately aids in the reconstruction of Godzilla's destructive presence in the film. Gojira relies heavily on its environmentalist messages to debate the use of power in the contemporary socio-political climate. Honda uses the character of Daisuke Serizawa as an audience surrogate for this message.
今ゴジラを防がなければ、これから先一体どうなるでしょう。もしも一旦このオキシジェンデストロイヤーを使ったら最後、世界の為政者たちが黙って見ているはずがないんだ。原爆対原爆、水爆対水爆、その上さらにこの新しい恐怖の武器を人類の上に加えることは。
Serizawa rejects his own superweapon, the oxygen destroyer, because politicians and more will try to replicate it for other and similar destructive purposes, the message being that such power is abused by humans.
水爆実験が続けて行われるとしたら、また世界のどこかへ現れてくるかもしれない。
In the 2014 film, we have Ishiro Serizawa, who makes a case to the character of Admiral Stenz against the use of nuclear warheads, reminding the Admiral of the Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings.
Stopped? Yes. 8:15 in the morning, August 6, 1945.
Here, it is apparent that, much like in the 1954 film, traditional weapons are powerless against Godzilla, thus provoking the audience to sympathize with Serizawa's plight as history repeats itself and it could cause more destruction. This in turn leads Serizawa to ask and beg the military leader to let nature run its course.
The arrogance of man is thinking nature is in our control, and not the other way around. Let them fight.
But in the end, they still go ahead with a nuclear bomb plan, which is only narrowly prevented by the other protagonists. Regardless of the outcome, the original Serizawa is proven right. Another commonality exists in both films, the portrayal of the military and citizens. Both films use establishing shots to portray the military through the chaos of Godzilla's appearances, and likewise we see the chaos inflicted upon civilians, as entire cities are devastated in the wake of Godzilla and Muto's conflict. This would be where the films begin to differ. In comparing the two iterations, there's a stark contrast in the portrayal and thematic relevance of the Big G himself. But perhaps the hero versus villain aspect to it is not the point. Honda had commented on the monster genre as not just being representative of nuclear weaponry, but also cathartic of its fallout. The origin details Godzilla as being awoken by hydrogen bomb tests, spinning it into a rampage on Tokyo and causing much damage. Godzilla is in reaction to the abuse of this power, aggressively demonstrating the destruction caused by superweapons. With that interpretation in mind, Godzilla 2014 plays the sympathetic route completely straight. Within the 2014 film, we see the similar event play out in the opening credits, with Godzilla being attacked at Bikini Atoll and apparently sending him into hibernation. He reawakens to face Muto, contrasting him as someone impacted by the effects of man tampering with nature. Muto is seen as a monster that, while vengeful like the original Godzilla, continues to abuse power and disrupt the way of life. Godzilla, much like he was in 1954, is presented as a god that has suffered at the hands of his own power, and takes it back from both the Muto and the humans for no more abuse, reflecting how man cannot tamper with such destructive ability and allow nature to run its course. Edwards followed this up with the ending of Ford Brody's subplot, where they unsuccessfully tried to disarm the nuke and let it detonate at sea, symbolizing how the use of weapons has become unavoidable in the human reaction to changing nature. But as the ending demonstrates, Godzilla will still be there to reclaim that power. There will still be hope, moving forward and building off of failure from before. It's been interesting to see how the ideals of two directors would craft or reinterpret the King of the Monsters, especially when so historically and culturally separated. But ultimately, this comparison has highlighted how both films use the nuclear or nature-driven context of Godzilla to critique humanity's abuse of power, through things such as the Barthes codes to stimulate audience reaction and engagement, while Gojira used its giant monster to grimly remind what can happen with such power. Godzilla ultimately used the monster illustrating a brighter future. And this finally brings to light how both films use the emphasis on man's use of power, and how it leads to further destruction. While Godzilla is different in his alignment and each film diverges to reflect that, he retains his atomic origins and symbolism of catharsis.